starting with the competitive assessment, we are going to take a couple steps. One is it allows us first to explain it, strategically plan, and get detailed information about our competition and about us. And we're going to do that in a variety of ways. And you don't have to do all of these things, but in a real world scenario, we would go to that competitor in person, we would call them by phone, we might email them, we might get on the internet. There are going to be a lot of different ways we gather the information. And we're going to look at various variables, and that will change based on the market plan you are doing. But we want to know their kind of offerings, the services they provide, their pricing, what kind of marketing materials they have, their consumer feedback kinds of things. But we want to understand as much about our competition as we can. In my perfect world, we go and visit that site and do all of the other things, because the better in tune I am with my competition, the better I am able to position my own agency for the future. In this case, because you might be doing a marketing plan for an agency you don't know, you have to do a more formal gathering to begin with about your own organization. So in essence, you're analyzing your organization on these variables as well as a competitor. But the reason we do that is because it's going to give us insight about our target market selection. It's going to give us a means for establishing our competitive advantage and help us understand how we are different from our competition and what we should be capitalizing on. It's going to give us critical information for pricing. And my rule of thumb is I am not doing anything in marketing. If I'm working with an organization, we don't do anything until we do a competitive analysis. And that competitive analysis is really now broken into a social analysis, a quality analysis, and competition directly. So know that it's that important. And how we do it is first we identify our competitors. When we identify our competitors, we're looking at maybe direct competition and or indirect competition. And I know our chapter explains this better, but it's as simple as if I'm a golf course, then chances are I'm competing directly with other golf courses, because we think like the consumer. Whatever the consumer is thinking, that's who our competitor is. So if our consumer is sitting at home right now saying, geez, I want to go golfing today, I don't know if I want to go to the country club, or I don't know if I want to go to this private club. That would be a logical process. But let's say you are something that doesn't have a direct competitor like that in the market, like bowling. Bowling would be a perfect example, because typically you're in a market, you don't have multiple bowling centers right around you kind of idea. So you might just be saying, geez, do we want to go bowling, or do we want to go for a bike ride, or do we want to go to the movies instead? Movie theaters would be another example. It's not like there are a lot of competition in a market for standard movie theaters, but you are competing with other kinds of choices. Thank you for my coffee. This is important. Hope you have a nice beverage too. So when we look at direct and indirect competitors, I'm asking you to just pick one. Whether it's a direct or indirect, all depends on the type of organization you are. So with that, what I want you to do is identify your organization and your competitor. And in this case, we're not doing a benchmark analysis, but we would do that in an organization, look at the leader in our field. So maybe if I go back to the bowling center example, I'm going to look at the best bowling center in Michigan or the United States and model and see what they're doing to that. Disney is often benchmarked against our industry overall. People look at Disney and measure and monitor Disney so they can get ideas about how to make changes to their operation or to their marketing or to whatever they do in their business. So with identifying competitors, we typically look at benchmark leaders in the business, but direct competitors are really what we're trying to analyze here. So if your marketing plan is with a fine dining restaurant that you're writing your marketing plan for, I'd want you to think of who in this market is our number one competitor, because there are people at home going, hey, do you want to go to this fine dining place or this fine dining place? And if they're making that consideration, they're considered your competitor. So I'll help you pick that competitor if you need that assistance or you want to run it by me. But garbage in is garbage out. You pick a bad competitor, this is a useless exercise. So you want to make sure you pick the appropriate competitor. Second is we conduct the analysis. And again, as already identified, you may do a variety of things. I am not going to tell you what you have to do, because if it's convenient for you and you want to do a site visit and you can learn the information more valuable, go do a site visit. But you don't have to do a site visit. You don't have to make a telephone call, but I think you already heard your telephone data, and there might be some opportunities here that what you could learn from the organization, so you might call them. You should look at their website. You should be looking at their social sites, and other online kinds of sources they might be on. So variety of methods. Do your best not to rely just on one, even though the internet is the easy way to do that. It is not inclusive of all information. So even by making a phone call, talking to people who've been there, etc., you might gain a lot of insight. So identify your competition, conduct the analysis, and then evaluate the information. So this section of your marketing plan, as you begin it, should have, and if you've seen past samples of those student plans, you'll notice they'll have the information analyzed, presented in some type of table format, and then they might have a paragraph or some bullet points under it that shares with the people reading the plan what they thought of that plan. So what kind of conclusions they would make from the data they saw. Not all that different from the example I gave you from the TICOM one in the earlier section. But what you're saying here is, what does it all mean? What are you pulling from that information as the like? So quick example then of how that worked. We were doing a project for South Haven Convention and Visitors Bureau. They wanted to look at what they were doing and how they were branded and sharing their information. And so the first thing I did for them is this table in front. I said, who are your competitors? Who do you believe you compete with as a South Haven CVB? And the purple X's represent those organizations that they benchmarked, or they wanted to look like and felt like a Detroit, a Traverse City, a Lansing, a Grand Rapids, Experience Grand Rapids. But their competitors were truly the beach towns. So we looked at the benchmarks, who they are aspiring to, or ones they looked up to in terms of how they represented their CVBs. And then we looked directly at who the competition was. And we looked as far north as Pure Ludington, to Grand Haven and Holland and Saugatuck and Benton Harbor, that those were really their competitive set. So again, if this was you doing the marketing plan this semester, I would ask that you do one competitor of those. If you choose to do more, that's kind of value added, I say, and I would certainly support that. Again, not real to be just one competitor. It is real to say, who are they? How many are they? And in this case, there were 5 others that really we would look at, including Kalamazoo, which was not a beach town, but in that vicinity, and someone they wanted to look at. So a competitive analysis does just that. It looks at who are your competitors, and then what does that information say. So in this case, this was a marketing plan for the Grand Rapids Public Museum and their competitors. So the first column is your agency, and the remaining columns are the competitors. So in this case, the Public Museum's competitors were the Downtown Market, the John Ball Zoo, City Flats, and Fred Meyer Gardens. So those 4 competitors, this individual decided to look at several pieces of information related to their competition. So the left-hand column was, what was their size? What did they charge? What segments did they serve? Did they have parking and valet? What kind of food and beverage did they have? What kind of special features? What kind of policies and restrictions? And what did TripAdvisor say? You need to decide the left-hand columns, and you need to decide who your competition is. So in your case, this would be a 2-column presentation. It would be, if you were the Public Museum, you might just look at the Downtown Market if that was your number 1 competitor. In this case, this is a coffee house, and they did a marketing plan for Lemon Jellos and out of Holland, and they looked at JP's Good Earth and Wake Up Cafe as the 3 competitors, and they looked at size. They wanted to look at the brand logo. They looked at basic products, hours of operation, online menu availability, location, their mission statement, and the type of guests. So you can see their left-hand column was very different than the other Public Museum one, and even the format that they did it in, but it's all in one table, which is the key. Present the information in easy to understand, simple format, so anybody could look at this and understand what's going on. Licari's is a restaurant. They looked at other Italian restaurants in the market, And again, did it by number of seats, their services, their prices, their products, target markets, hours, and then support information about where they were. On another level, this was an entertainment or an event, a running race that the National Cherry Festival does, the Festival of Races, and they looked at other races that are around the state that other people would be looking at. You know, I'm looking to run the Cherry Festival race, or I'm looking to run the Bayshore, or I'm looking to run Fifth Third Riverbank. And so they did this again by distances they had, the number of people, rates, exposition, training schedules, post-race activities, prizes, and medals. Completely different variables they analyzed because they needed to think like the market. What kinds of things would they be considering, and what do we want to compare across? So they even looked at website design on theirs. Competitive assessment for John Ball Zoo. They looked at Craig's Cruisers, the Children's Museum, and Fred Meyer Gardens. Again, not another zoo in the market. So these are indirect, but direct to the zoo because of their offerings. Services, prices, products, target markets, hours, etc. So what you're doing in this section is simply looking at your organization across some variables and a competitor. And then you would write a conclusion, paragraph, bullet pointed conclusions about what that table says. Oversaturated market, many focus on weddings, we're priced higher, include more services, no one is focused on the nonprofit market, etc.